Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest trends, stories, and innovations from thought leaders in the digital infrastructure industry. And we are coming to you live from the Lone Star big allergy state of Austin, Texas. That's right.
Howdy.
Howdy. My allergies are as big as the sky is here in Texas right now. But that's the bad news. Everything else is good news. Good news, including the hostess with the mostest. My co-host Kelly Stark is with me, and we are going to recap day one of Datacloud USA here in Austin, Texas, for you right now, and give you a little sneak peek of what we might be seeing on day two. Kelly, how did day one go for you?
Well, I'm from Dallas, so no allergies were bothering me.
Congratulations.
We're used to this. But it was a beautiful day here, and everyone here was excited. We had a lot of good topics about sustainability, energy, talent in the workplace, and co-located was a Women in Tech conference.
Yep.
And so Courtney Burrows and I went and met some beautiful ladies over there, and she's actually even going to host a panel today there. So that's exciting.
Very exciting. And I'm with you. I took a couple of notes yesterday. As expected, we heard a lot about AI, next-gen workforce, as you said, sustainability, a couple of other, we'll call them subtopics around all three of those marquee subjects, ecosystems, and the importance of ecosystems in making any of those three things work, be it sustainability, AI, or a next-gen workforce. It takes an ecosystem kind of all collaborating and working and kind of rowing in the same direction to make any of that work. And so we are hearing more about ecosystems. Change management, specifically as it relates to sustainability, and the fact that a reasonable and rational sustainability objective doesn't really look like all in or not in at all, but more of a trajectory where we are combining multiple energy sources, including fossil fuels, as a way to begin to offset our near total reliance on fossil fuels. So it all seems much more reasonable, rational than it did, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I agree. I was really impressed with some of the input from some of the people that you're going to be on a panel with today.
Yeah.
Not to steal their show, but like Patricia LeVay, she was really sharing that approach. Like it
That's
has
right.
to be a combination. You can't go all of a sudden to just renewable energy sources, obviously. And there was a lot of good discussions about how to make it a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, no, we took all of the punches early on, and began to iron it out and kind of shake it off and figure out a really positive and fruitful way forward with regard to sustainability and some of the green energy initiatives and things like that. So a lot of again, AI, next gen workforce, sustainability. All of those great things. I suspect we will see more of that today.
We have some great lineup today, so yes, for sure, we're going to hear from those people.
It is a great and very busy lineup today, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And to your point, also the panel that I'm speaking on went from 20 minutes now to 40 minutes, which means we get to kind of blow out the discussion even more. And my good friend Jeff Barber, who's sitting just behind the camera, is on that panel as well. He's already kind of filling my head with lots of really, really great ideas to carry on the conversation today. So I'm very excited about that. The food's been good too.
Yes.
Yeah,
of course it is, because we're in Texas.
My stomach is definitely a Texan because because I'm as carnivorous as they come. The brisket was really, really good here. So yeah, truly enjoying it. And Kelly, can't wait to do a recap at the end of the day today and talk all about all of the great things that we learned today.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good to me too. So thank you for viewing. Stick with us today. Day 2 of Datacloud USA will be here all day long. So make sure that you stay connected, that you stay happy, healthy, that you stay dreaming, and that you are happy in all of your networking objectives today. We'll see you real soon.
Bye, y'all.
The main point of the chapter is that sustainability is not simple. It is a complicated problem, and it requires comprehensive solutions. And we need to make sure that while we're finding solutions and implementing them, we do it without exacerbating other problems or creating new ones. So I think if I had to boil it down to the 3 takeaways, the first one is that we're all in it together. The solutions that we pursue, they have to work for everyone globally, not just our industry or not just a particular player. We need to find holistic, comprehensive solutions. The other one, like I said, we can't break something else. There's 17 SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. There's 9 planetary boundaries, and we have to keep our eye on all of them. And I think really at the very bottom line, the simplest way to become more sustainable is to take less and make less, and therefore we waste less.
If somebody reads my chapter, the most important thing that they should really take away from it is this micro to macro approach. Really looking at data centers and sustainability in data centers as a holistic thing, as opposed to just individual products or individual isolated systems. Really taking a broader view, and in fact, that micro to macro approach, even those small individual items that really one doesn't think of as having a significant impact on an isolated basis, really begin to snowball and add up and have a broader impact on a programmatic basis.
There are 2 defining trends of our time: digitization and sustainability. So on the one hand, everything that can be digitized will be digitized, driving a huge amount of data and need for compute. On the other hand, we have a rapidly evolving climate crisis, with governments, businesses, individuals needing to take urgent action to curb emissions. The data center sits at the intersection of these megatrends. It's where digital transformation meets the climate crisis head-on. So every time we as consumers go online, we do our banking, we do our online shopping, we stream a TV series, a process starts in a data center. If this data center is power hungry, coal-fired, energy inefficient, and lets excess heat into the atmosphere, then we are contributing to climate change, and most likely unknowingly, all of us. My chapter starts with a personal story of when I tried to explain what I do at work to my young daughter, and failing miserably in getting her remotely interested. I finally managed to capture her interest when we got into a discussion on how watching My Little Pony on her iPad started a process in a data center that recycled the excess heat from the servers to warm the radiators in our home in snowy Stockholm. So the first part of my chapter looks at digital infrastructure through the eyes of a child and helps land how being a part of this industry affords us an opportunity to, in my daughter's words, help the world become a better place. So in my chapter, I also zoom in on innovation that is transforming the data center industry, how the digital data explosion fuels the need for high-density data centers, and why modern data centers need to have heat reuse, circular economy principles, innovative cooling, and work in tandem with the climate. These are all existing industry innovations that are starting to be deployed at large scale. I use some of North's Nordic data centers to give real examples in the chapter. Lastly, I also zoom out and look at what factors that can accelerate innovation, accelerate change. And I believe that customers, so the buyers of data centers, and consumers, so anyone who consumes digital services, will increasingly act as change agents and accelerate the shift towards greener data.
Yeah, so what I've written about in Greener Data really touches on the substantive changes that the free market, in my view, can be making to impact the cleanliness of our environment, and how imperative it is that the IT industry, in particular with all the advanced applications that are coming online, leverages some of the new technologies with cooling, in particular liquid cooling and immersion. The spoiler alert is that, in my view, the tech industry can do more right now than it is doing, and probably more than most other industries in the immediate that could have a material impact on a greener environment.
My chapter discusses the evolution and innovation of data center technology at Flexential. We focus on how we are shaping the future of data centers through advanced power and cooling strategies. It highlights really the importance of data centers in today's era of digital transformation, in particular in meeting the high-performance computing demands of AI and machine learning workloads.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from the world of digital infrastructure. And I've got a new thought leader. I think you're not new to the industry, but new to me. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And we are coming to you live. That's right, we are live, Melissa, at Datacloud USA in Austin, Texas. And I have with me the thought leader, Melissa Farney. Melissa is the director of marketing at TECfusions. Melissa, welcome to JSA. I know it's not your first rodeo, and I love saying that here in Texas.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Dean. Yeah, we're excited to be here and to share some of what we're doing as a company. TECfusions is pretty new, only about 18 months in business. So we're just getting started, kicking everything off, telling the world who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we're data center owner and operator around the world, about 30 sites that we have purchased or selected as our future data centers. And we'll get into some of that strategy because 18 months having 30 sites, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you bring those online? So some of what we've done is, I'll call it adaptive reuse, but I want to, drop that there and let you know that that's how we're bringing everything online. So that has equaled about 4 gigawatts of planned capacity all around the world.
Yeah.
Huge introduction to the space.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And, you said it's only 18 months. As fast as the industry is moving right now, that's probably feels like 18 years to you.
Jeez. Yeah, well, it ages me that way. At least.
Or 18 days for that matter.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it, and it's the first time I've heard it, and I'm intrigued. Adaptive reuse as a sustainability strategy. Tell us all about it.
Oh my goodness. So right now, our industry at large is facing all this pressure to bring everything online quickly. I used to say, the term used to be build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And now it's build it. You better get building because they're already here.
Yeah, they're at the doorstep.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, the doorstep doesn't exist. Oh my gosh, what do we do? So one of the newer strategies, and I won't call it a new strategy because it's been around for a little bit, but not many companies have tried it to this scale. So by choosing not to break ground, it can in fact be a groundbreaking approach. So
I'm stealing that. I will. Yeah.
So what we're doing, it's preserving environmental resources by repurposing existing structures in large industrial plants, warehouses that already had immense power allocated to them. Floor bearing capacity could support the heavy racks that we need to bring in. So they already existed. They already had power. And what we're doing is then converting those. And so with this reuse, we're reducing waste from both demolition and new construction. It's incredibly sustainable, reduces emissions by up to 80%.
Hot dog, that's legit. It feels like creative reuse as well as adaptive. I get it, but wow, that's very, very, very cool. We have sustainable power generation. So we're talking about the adaptive or creative reuse, but talk to us about power generation.
So in terms of power generation, as I said, the need for power is also at an all-time high, not just finding the space that has power. So our power needs are growing and growing quickly.
Yeah.
And so we're actually starting to see some municipalities begin to reject applications that don't come in offering, say, something new in terms of bringing your own power, bringing your own microgrid support. So actually, this is a perfect thing. This is built into our company strategy as well. We're committed to bringing in microgrid power to supplement what we're getting from the utility because, our approach is believe that we shouldn't just consume what's out there, but also produce our own. And I will say there's an added benefit to becoming a little energy independent and starting to produce your own, not just taking from the grid. And then we can always offer to put that back into the local grid as needed.
Yeah, and I haven't had an opportunity to read the entire article, but there was a New York Times article that was just published yesterday, basically cooking our industry, saying, everybody, it's noisy and it's power hungry and it's all these things and communities are getting blindsided and all that. I wish they were here right now, the New York Times, talking to you because you are what is more commonplace in our industry than what maybe traditionally might be kind of legacy data center owner operators, these big monoliths, windowless buildings sucking up all of the natural resources. It ain't like that anymore, and folks like you are proving that point. So boy, I wish I had that article in front of me right now.
Well, we forget sometimes, like, I'll use a car analogy, like no one's going after Ford Motor Company because they built a bunch of cars. We're just grateful that they recognize our need for transportation. Society needs to come along to data centers in the same light. Like they should recognize, like, we don't build these structures because we really like to build computer server warehouses. Like
giant concrete buildings are our thing.
It's what gets us up. It is. I mean, we love what we do because we know that we can do it the best of anybody out there, but it's ultimately to serve society's digital needs.
Such a great point. I literally was talking about this yesterday on a panel that I was speaking on, but like it is what is being enabled by what's happening in those buildings that is more important than what's happening in those buildings. Of course, people, if I'm a city manager or city engineer, I need to know what's going on. I need to know that we've got the right power and all of those kinds of things. But from a public perspective, it is all of the things that is being enabled by the things in there. That is the real story. And so for people like you to come in and to say, we're going to even tell that story better.
Right.
And that's kind of what it feels like to me that you're doing.
Well, that's what
telling
we're
a better
to do.
story.
Telling a better story, building a better product, building a better system, and ultimately taking all of the pieces and parts and trying to reconstruct them into something new that doesn't harm the environment, doesn't harm the community. Now, there's no NIMBYism per se for us because these structures already exist in people's backyards. For what we're doing with the adaptive reuse. So that's not as much of a factor, but we are still building and adding on. We are still taking down power, but we're offering to put some back.
Yeah, which is like it's being a part of the existing ecosystem, kind of working that in. I just love it. I'm fascinated by all of it. But let's put on our let's get out our crystal balls. And so what is it about what you're doing and kind of where the industry is going with regard to sustainability and kind of meeting the needs of next generation technologies that really excites you right now?
Oh my gosh, what excites me is how much potential there still is to innovate.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think there's one crystal ball technology that I could ever point to. What excites me is the opportunity to look across all of the different opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's call them all opportunities, not challenges, and look at what we can do and how we can make a mix, how we can put things together. Because like I said, adaptive reuse, it isn't really new. I mean, there were companies trying to do it 10, 15 years ago, but to choose to do it at the scale that TECfusions is doing, that's unheard of.
Yeah.
To make that your primary go-to-market strategy, that's unheard of. And I think what we will see is companies that succeed at this, at becoming more innovative and more sustainable, are willing to take that risk and do something that, well, we've talked about it, but nobody has quite had the nerve to do this far. And then when you think microgrids on top of that, that's another, like, we've talked about doing this. We all know that we need to build smaller, more local power grids that support our needs.
Yeah.
But to actually say, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this land. I'm going to build this pipeline, and I'm going to bring in nat gas, and I'm going to provide my own power. And I mean, the risk to run your own utility operations. So what we're going to see, what it will take to succeed is a company that says, I'm not going all in on just adaptive reuse, or I'm not just going in on one energy source. I am willing to innovate and take, like, maybe it speaks to the strategy of those who can do adaptive reuse, that we can look at it and say, here's what is there, and here's what I still need, and how do I bring these things together? I'm able to take what's existing and somehow make magic out of it.
There are too many quotable comments from you right now. It is all so good. You are literally embodying that vibe, that candid. You said commitment. You said risk. You have to be all in on something like this, or you're not in at all.
Right.
And yeah, I love it. It's a real vibe. I love what you guys are doing, and it feels innovation is a word that we throw around maybe a little haphazardly. But it feels like innovation to me. It feels like art and creative innovation to me as well.
All right. Well, it feels like innovation is going to be my new catchphrase. So
Well,
that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
You bet, Melissa. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. Thanks.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. We will see you soon.
The chapter deals into the realm of the green data centers, addressing the imperative of balancing technologies as mentioned with environmental responsibility. It emphasizes the necessity of transitional towards the sustainable practices to mitigate the environmental impact of data centers. We have talked about key strategies including optimizing the energy efficient infrastructure, harnessing renewable energy sources, overcoming the challenges such as high initial cost and legacy infrastructure. There, we also incorporated few case studies where we highlight how successful implementation eventually helped the organization to bring all those sustainability initiatives within the business and demonstrate the successful benefits, including cost reduction as well as decreased carbon emissions.
Yeah. So the key takeaways for the chapter, I was so excited to be able to participate in this project. I mean, first and foremost, sustainability is one of the core values that we have here at DartPoint. So this is not only important to us from a as we evolve as a data center operator, but it's truly important to us as a company that we contribute as we think about the impacts that our business has on the environment and how we can always look to improve that and be more competitive. But the title of my chapter is really the interconnect domain between finance, sustainability, and innovation. And I was so excited to get that as our title because it really covers the entire ecosystem end to end as it relates to the data center sector and the impacts that the data center sector is having on the environment. And really, the four key takeaways that I would identify in our chapter are really first and foremost is growth that the sector is experiencing. When you think about data demand and you think about where data centers sit in the ecosystem, right? We're at the core of what drives that data demand, not only today, but these enormous future projections, right? The ecosystems that we create in our facilities are really the drivers that enable all that. So that's one, right? How sustainable is that going forward, and what are the impacts on the environment, given just the enormous power demand that our ecosystems create, and particularly when you think about the tailwinds of AI and machine learning type opportunities, that demand only exponentially grows. The second point, really in our chapter, is really about capital. Right? We're a business that requires an enormous amount of capital to continue to grow. We are a capital intensive business. And the chapter that we were able to participate in really addresses the impact of capital coming into the industry, the impact of sustainability, and particularly around the new entrance of capital coming into the market and how they want to focus capital being deployed in a very sustainable way. And so we really address that. I'm excited about the impacts that's having on the industry. The third one is innovation, right? That's what DartPoints is all about. We consider ourselves really to be thought leaders in the industry, right? We want to be perceived as innovators. When you think about sustainability, and I mentioned the power demand in the industry, generally people tend to just kind of think about alternative power sources, whether that's wind or whether it's other types of power solutions that are being talked about. But when you really understand what's going on within the data center ecosystem, that's just one component, right? Design, processes, tools, procedures, technology, right? How you become very efficient through advanced technology and innovation. All of that end-to-end ecosystem really comes into play when you begin to think about sustainability within the data center sector, and how do you really maximize the benefit that we can have on the environment. And then, of course, the last one of the key learning is the customer, right? That is clearly an environment where if you want to be relevant as a data center provider, not only today, but in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you have to evolve your thinking, the way we build our platforms, the way we deploy our platforms, all has to have a mindset of sustainability, because customers today, whether you're engaging in a prospective discussion as they look at you as a potential partner, or they're a customer in your existing environment, they're demanding solutions that are environmentally friendly. And if you want to continue to do business with them, you've got to be able to deliver and demonstrate that that's a direction you're developing and evolving your company. So those are really the 4 key takeaways and the 4 areas that we focus on within our chapter within the book.
Of its own at this very moment.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from the thought leaders in the digital transformation and digital infrastructure industries. And we are coming at you live. That's right. We are live at Datacloud USA from the Lone Star State, Austin, Texas. And I have a very, very cool new thought leader to interview today. Not a new thought leader in the space, but a new thought leader to me. Megan Baker is the VP of Engagement for the Green Building Initiative. Megan, welcome to JSA TV.
Thanks so much for having me, Dean. Appreciate it.
You bet, you bet. And I know that your CEO, I believe, is a Greener Data author as well.
She is. Vicki Warden. Yeah, she is a contributing author in both volumes 1 and 2.
Outstanding. So you know a little bit about green data, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Imagine that, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about. So why don't we start with kind of high level market drivers impacting, influencing sustainability? What do you got?
Absolutely. So there's a number of different market drivers for sustainability, and it's great to kind of see them all come together, because it means that there's kind of something for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So we have a regulatory environment that's certainly driving this, right? We're seeing a lot of the SEC's climate disclosure. We're seeing California with Senate Bill 253. We're seeing lots of state and local governments even starting to have some of these requirements for green buildings. So net zero requirements, sustainability certification, like Green Globes certification requirements as well. And so that's obviously a huge driver, right?
For sure.
When they have to comply with the requirements, right?
I don't know that there's a bigger driver than that, right?
I don't know either. And then obviously we're looking at stakeholder engagement too. Investors are really looking for sustainable buildings. They're wanting to protect their assets and wanting to make sure that their buildings are going to be around in the future and that they're going to continue to be sustainable. It's definitely something that's a lot more important to people than it ever has been.
For sure.
And even not just sustainability drivers for investors, but also looking at the people that we're going to be doing business with in the next generation, right? Those decision leaders in the future are very concerned about environmental issues. So they're going to be the ones making these decisions someday soon, and they're going to be driving these practices as well.
I love it. You know what? Let's back up for just a second. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the Green Building Initiative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are a 501c3 global nonprofit organization who is dedicated to improving the built environment's impact on climate and society. And we do that in a couple of different ways. Green Globes certification is kind of our bread and butter. That's our primary objective, is to certify all different types of commercial real estate by making a rigorous certification accessible to all different building types. So we're really trying to, increase the pie, move the needle, making sure that all buildings have access to a sustainability rating system that is both educational and impactful. So that's kind of our primary objective, but then we're also an educational leader as well. We host live events, webinars, we put out thought leadership articles and things like that.
So that's why I asked, because we were talking before the camera ever started rolling, and I thought, you know what, Megan is an educator. She's going to come and she's going to educate us a little bit on some of this stuff, and for sure, I kind of suspected that was kind of part and parcel to the Green Building Initiative. So very, very cool. I'm going to jump back into the script now. Cool?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, this is a fun one. How are facilities increasing resilience and reducing dependency on the grid?
Yeah, so this is obviously a very key point for this conference, all conferences that I've been to recently. Power is the huge issue, right? And how do we have enough power for these data centers in all these different locations, right? And so I think I kind of see resilience as two different aspects, right? So the first is that, is the building going to be able to withstand any sort of climatic events that are a result of what we're seeing today, but also what we're seeing in the future, right? So we know that there is a changing climate, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be more extreme weather events.
We've seen it. It's a proven thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Floods, fires, the whole works. So we want to make sure that we're protecting the buildings and being resilient in that way. So assessing different materials, orientations of buildings, things like that, to make sure that, again, we're protecting the asset, but then also the resiliency from the grid part, right? And so I think there's two different things that need to happen. I think that we need to be protecting our grid and feeding back renewables to that, so that we can actually create a more renewably focused, empowered grid, right? And then the other thing is for these data centers to be resilient and energy independent, right? So they need to be utilizing renewable energy sources on site. They need to be participating in REC programs, right? Renewable energy credits, and purchasing those so that we can continue to support that development.
Yeah.
And then obviously the use of, other types of energy as well, including nuclear and hydrogen, hopefully getting those at a wider scale.
Yeah, see, that is something I was talking with a colleague of mine earlier today, and that does feel like a theme. And the theme is, it ain't all or nothing.
Right.
You can't go. There is no singular direction toward a more sustainability initiative. It really is going to take all of these kinds of initiatives and clean energy and innovation to make it happen over the long term.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're innovating at the speed of light, and so there's all kinds of things that are happening. So an institution like yourself to come in and say, hey, we're going to help you with some of these formalizing some of these initiatives and educating the public on what this actually means over the long haul. I can see that being absolutely critical to getting anything done. So very, very cool. Okay. What sustainability approach or innovation do you think will have the greatest impact going forward?
So I don't necessarily see this as a silver bullet. And I don't think there's going to be one thing that sort of changes the whole industry. But what I will say is I think that there's a combination of things. And to your point about leveraging all these different sort of strategies to be able to come together and figure this out together. So I think that partnerships are really going to be key. I think that utilities partnering with the data centers is going to be a big a big point that would move the needle. I think that data centers partnering with city and states is going to be important. I think even the federal government needs to be involved in this. But I think that making sure that we're able to commercially or wide scale deploy nuclear and hydrogen is huge. I think that the United States needs to be better about adopting heat waste reuse. So I think that that's something that really needs to happen, because that is beneficial both for the individual data center as well. It can be beneficial for the surrounding area too, in terms of energy consumption and emissions. And then I also think that, leveraging, I've already mentioned hydrogen and nuclear, but I think that that's going to be huge. The R&D that's going into that right now and being able to deploy that wide scale is going to be huge. But then also even bulking up the energy efficiency or energy sources coming from renewables too is going to be big. So continuing to power data centers with wind and solar and looking at other renewable sources.
And fossil fuel is a part of the conversation, but isn't the only conversation. Right. And especially as we begin to innovate how we get some of that power to the right places via nuclear and all of these other things. We're truly innovating on how fossil fuels are being used and how we're pulling it from the ground and things like that. So it all kind of plays together, to your point. I find it all fascinating. And you also I know I'm going off script. I promise that I'll be quick. But you mentioned nuclear. What kind of when you say that word, what kind of response? I imagine generationally when I talk about nuclear to my father, he thinks 3 Mile Island, he thinks Chernobyl, he thinks, oh my God, we shouldn't be touching this with a 10-foot pole. But it ain't my dad's nuclear energy initiative. Right. What do you say to people who are just like, what are you this is worse than pulling it from the ground?
We see a lot of the same, right? Generational, and that's understandable, right? Like that's totally understandable. That's a fair point. But I do think that there's a lot of grant money that's being allocated for R&D in this space. I think that we're doing it a lot better. I think that people are recognizing that, look, if we don't figure this out, we're going to be in big trouble someday soon. So I think that there's a lot more openness to it than there ever has been. There's certainly still some resistance, but I think that, if we're proving that we're really taking the time, taking the energy to do this, that it is important, and that we're going to have to transition off of fossil fuels in order to meet the climate goals that are rapidly approaching. 2030 is not far away.
It really isn't. No. Megan, thanks so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dean, for having me.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. Stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you soon.
The main point of the chapter is that sustainability is not simple. It is a complicated problem, and it requires comprehensive solutions. And we need to make sure that while we're finding solutions and implementing them, we do it without exacerbating other problems or creating new ones. So I think if I had to boil it down to the 3 takeaways, the first one is that we're all in it together. The solutions that we pursue, they have to work for everyone globally, not just our industry or not just a particular player. We need to find holistic, comprehensive solutions. The other one, like I said, we can't break something else. There's 17 SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. There's 9 planetary boundaries, and we have to keep our eye on all of them. And I think really at the very bottom line, the simplest way to become more sustainable is to take less and make less, and therefore we waste less.
If somebody reads my chapter, the most important thing that they should really take away from it is this micro to macro approach. Really looking at data centers and sustainability in data centers as a holistic thing, as opposed to just individual products or individual isolated systems. Really taking a broader view, and in fact, that micro to macro approach, even those small individual items that really one doesn't think of as having a significant impact on an isolated basis, really begin to snowball and add up and have a broader impact on a programmatic basis.
There are 2 defining trends of our time: digitization and sustainability. So on the one hand, everything that can be digitized will be digitized, driving a huge amount of data and need for compute. On the other hand, we have a rapidly evolving climate crisis, with governments, businesses, individuals needing to take urgent action to curb emissions. The data center sits at the intersection of these megatrends. It's where digital transformation meets the climate crisis head-on. So every time we as consumers go online, we do our banking, we do our online shopping, we stream a TV series, a process starts in a data center. If this data center is power hungry, coal-fired, energy inefficient, and lets excess heat into the atmosphere, then we are contributing to climate change, and most likely unknowingly, all of us. My chapter starts with a personal story of when I tried to explain what I do at work to my young daughter, and failing miserably in getting her remotely interested. I finally managed to capture her interest when we got into a discussion on how watching My Little Pony on her iPad started a process in a data center that recycled the excess heat from the servers to warm the radiators in our home in snowy Stockholm. So the first part of my chapter looks at digital infrastructure through the eyes of a child and helps land how being a part of this industry affords us an opportunity to, in my daughter's words, help the world become a better place. So in my chapter, I also zoom in on innovation that is transforming the data center industry, how the digital data
Welcome to JSA TV, where we are covering the latest stories, trends, and innovations from thought leaders in the digital, I've been saying digital transformation. I also want to say digital infrastructure industry. And we are coming to you live from Datacloud USA in the Lone Star State of Austin, Texas. And I am here with my new friend and thought leader in the space, Mr. Scott Despot. Scott is the Director of Business Development and Sales at Spencer Building Carrier Hotel. Scott, welcome to JSA TV.
Thank you very much.
And I know that you are not a newbie to JSA TV. We've interviewed you a couple of different times. But so in that, with that in mind, how is the Datacloud event different than maybe past events where we've ran into you?
It's definitely a different target, different market, different attendees. I don't want to rank the three that I've been to.
Good call.
But no, it's been good. It's my first time at Datacloud, and actually first time to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just good to hear the conversation and listen to what the industry is talking about.
Okay, we're going to jump right in now. So let's talk trends in the future of co-location.
Yep.
What are you seeing?
So specific to Vancouver, BC, where
Mm-hmm.
where we are, I think like a lot of places, there's not a lot of space and power.
Mm-hmm.
And, for us, we're the landlord of the building. We're the Carrier Hotel in Vancouver and have been so for about 25 years. We're building out a new co-location space. I think that there's strong demand anywhere. I think Vancouver is no different. We're a tertiary market, but there's still that demand for space and power in our marketplace, and it's just a matter of addressing it. And like everyone, the time is working against us. Everyone wants it now.
Yeah.
And they don't like to hear there's going to be 12, 18, 24 plus months.
Yeah.
But that's the challenge.
So are you ready now in Vancouver?
We've just built out, early in the year, we built out a new space in the Spencer building,
Mm-hmm.
a new Meet Me room, a small co-location room. We are currently building out about 12,000 square feet of additional space, which over a couple of phases will get us about 5 megawatts of power.
Mm-hmm.
Half that will be coming online in the middle of next year. So we're not quite ready, but the timing is. I mean, things
you're right at the edge, aren't you? Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's we talk about space and power, and as the landlord, we've got the space.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of just getting the site prepared.
Yeah, outstanding. Okay, so let's talk about the Canadian market then, specifically with regard to privacy and kind of data regulation and things like that. What are some of the benefits of that market to the kind of the future of co-location?
Yeah. Well, I think with Vancouver being where it is, gateway to Asia. And, we've had a number of companies come to us, and they are very aware of data privacy and.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in where they store their data, but they want to know that the network, the way they're accessing that data is secure, but also is within Canada. And so it is an important feature. It is something that is very important, particularly to European and some Asian customers.
For sure.
They want to make sure that is, there's that data sovereignty, and Canada
Mm-hmm.
has a very strong history in making sure that those rules are in place.
Mm-hmm. So supply and demand.
Yes.
Let's talk about that just a little bit. The demand for co-location services currently outpacing supply. We touched on this just a little bit. That ain't going to go away, is it?
No. And it's a struggle. I mean, it's exciting. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But it's also a frustrating problem. And at this conference, obviously a big discussion about AI and just where that's going, and it's a huge impact on the market. It's for a company like us, it's a distraction almost, because you get there's a shiny object in AI, and it's very appealing, but you I think have to take a look at your business model, and is it core to your business model, and is it a path you want to go down? We do have interest from AI companies. They want to buy all of our power and half the space.
Really?
And that's it could be good, but it doesn't fit our core model. And so we have to find the balance.
We sometimes forget, because this show in particular has been very, very AI focused and kind of like future forward technologies. But all of the stuff that we have done, that you all have done as data center operators and engineers, that ain't going away.
No.
In fact, that might be ramping up in concert with all of these kind of future forward technologies, AI, machine learning, and all this other stuff in concert. So you guys kind of are looking at the larger picture and making sure that you are meeting the demands for the folks that beyond just AI.
Yeah. Well, and again, it comes back to our business model. I mean, at the core of it, we're the carrier hotel, and connectivity is what we want to make sure that we're forefront in Vancouver. So that's always going to be important to us. But the whole AI model is going to pull everybody along. There's, I think, long coattails, and what space and power they take up is just going to mean that there's less for others, for enterprise, and for smaller, regional players. That's where we can come in. That's where we see that advantage for us.
Yeah.
Right downtown Vancouver, lots of connectivity.
I was just going to say, uniquely positioned right downtown Vancouver. Yeah. Excellent. Scott, let's do this again in like 6 months. You want to?
I think we should.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in to JSA TV, live from Datacloud USA. Stay connected, and we'll see you soon.
A quick high-level overview of my chapter. On-site power generation for data centers, microgrids, leveraging one of the cleanest sources of fuel available, which is natural gas or hydrogen or biogas. We introduced the Bloom technology, but most importantly, I spent a lot of time writing about the fact that natural gas and taking steps to reduce carbon today using natural gas is the most effective thing we can do, certainly for a greener data center design, a greener future. I spent a lot of time going into the metrics around that as well. And the fact that natural gas, for some reason right now, has kind of a bad rap, especially when you're not burning anything. Bloom does not combust. Bloom is converting those molecules to electrons. And so I spend quite a bit of time in the chapter talking about how we can take pragmatic, real steps towards carbon reduction while solving the power problem we have with data centers, the utility problem.
My chapter is entitled Sustainability at Cell Towers. That's obviously an area of focus for me and something that we know a fair amount about. I read the Greener Data issue, Volume 1, and was very impressed with the content and the direction that it took. But I noticed that it was very data center centric. And I thought we need to contribute something that will include other aspects of digital infrastructure, such as towers, because it's an ecosystem, it's all tied together. Towers to fiber to data centers, all the traffic that comes off the towers ends up in data centers. So I thought a contribution that would relate to the tower aspect of the digital infrastructure would be useful and informative. The chapter covers the size of the tower market. We estimate in the United States there's about 185,000 towers that are used by the cellular carriers. That's about 10 times that internationally, and that doesn't even include 2 million towers in China that are state-owned and operated. Yeah, every tower has the mobile network operators as tenants. They install their radio equipment and antennas to broadcast signals over the air to our devices, our smartphones, and that takes up a lot of power. So when you extrapolate the numbers of towers times the numbers of tenants on those towers and the equipment that's being used and the power required at each site to run all of that, it adds up to pretty significant proportions of power consumption and drives a lot of considerations as to how do we sustain that, how do we make that more energy efficient, and how do we meet greenhouse gas emission goals. There's actually, I talk in the chapter, there's 3 partners, if you will, on the tower. There's the tower company itself that owns the tower and the land under the tower. That's passive infrastructure. There's the mobile network operator that installs the radio and the base station equipment to broadcast and receive signals to and from devices. That's all active equipment and requires power. And then there's the manufacturers themselves of the radio equipment and the supporting infrastructure that all contribute to making cell sites very power efficient and sustainable for the future. So I tried to encapsulate that in my chapter to demonstrate that there are other considerations within the ecosystem outside of data centers that need to be looked at and need to be addressed by the operators, and how to drive a very energy efficient operation.
So AI is a technology that, from the data center perspective, is requiring significantly more density. Now, at the same time, it's also an exponential technology. So the higher density means that previously maybe you had 5 kilowatt racks, and for a megawatt you used 200 racks. Now, if you have 100 kilowatt racks, you have 10 racks only. So what does this change mean for the data center space? So in addition to kind of moving fast ahead, the technology is exponential. So it kind of feeds, it needs more and more capacity. And at the same time, the overall requirement for the data center is changing. So the implication is that we're moving towards liquid cooling. And at the same time, there are several different paths for that liquid cooling. So in this space that's
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, trends, and innovations from the world of the digital infrastructure industry. And we've got a lot of thought leaders on tap today, including my new friend, Mr. David Armistead. David is the Senior Vice President of Sales at DC Blocks, and we are live, lest I forget, we are coming to you live from Datacloud USA in the Lone Star State of Austin, Texas. David, welcome to JSA TV.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Outstanding. So, David, we have got a lot to talk about. You and I unpacked a few things just before the camera started rolling. So lots going on here. We're going to talk about hyperscale data center campuses. I want to talk about your edge secondary markets, subsea landing stations. DC Blocks, you guys have your hands in a lot of things. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about DC Blocks and how you got from kind of these tertiary, secondary markets and landing stations, and ultimately this hyperscale data center campuses?
Yeah, happy to. So DC Blocks has really evolved, I would say, over the last 4 to 5 years. Now, the company is 10 years old. Mm-hmm. The current leadership has been in place since 2017. Mm-hmm. And when we first started out, it was all about creating edge data centers in secondary markets, underserved markets, and that was in the southeastern United States. We now have 5 data centers in the southeastern United States, and one of them that we launched a couple of years ago is pretty special. It's not just a data center, it's also a subsea cable landing station, and that's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. With that, we have 2 hyperscalers that have come into that facility, Google and Meta, and we have 3 cables from those customers that are landing in Myrtle Beach. When we did that for the hyperscalers, one of the things they asked us to do was to connect them back to the IX in Atlanta. And so we constructed a dark fiber route between Myrtle Beach and Atlanta. With our execution on these edge data centers and what we did in Myrtle Beach with the cable landing station, hyperscalers asked us to do more, and our financial backers asked us to do more. And so we have embarked on hyperscale data centers. We have 4 of those campuses in development. 2 are in the Atlanta market. One on the west side in Lithia Springs, and then one on the east side in near Conyers, Georgia. Both of those are going to be way bigger than what we've done at the edge. You know, the edge data centers continue to serve enterprises in those markets. Those could be anything from a megawatt to 5 megawatts, typically serving hospital systems, universities, manufacturers. But for the hyperscale data centers, instead of 1 to 5 megawatts, these are 200 to 300 megawatts. So it's an order of magnitude bigger. And we are interconnecting those with fiber, just like we would interconnect all of our edge data centers. So really we have our edge data centers, which we continue to serve and operate. We have our cable landing stations, some dark fiber interconnectivity, and now the hyperscale data centers. I would add the one other way that we're serving hyperscalers is with, instead of the 200 to 300 megawatt sites, they want network edge nodes. And so those can be 5 to 10 megawatts, single tenant facilities, and we have those placed in the southeastern United States as well.
So those hyperscalers are pretty needy, huh?
They need a lot of power, and they needed it yesterday. So you know, we are currently selling 2027 power.
I believe it.
Because that's, you know, everything that is available and coming online in 25 and 26 is largely spoken for.
Yeah, no, that is unsurprising, and congratulations. It sounds like you guys are doing some really, really great things right now. But you mentioned a couple of things, and so I'm going to go off script as I sometimes do. With regard to your edge data center initiatives and some of these secondary markets, and you mentioned like hospitals and universities. I think you mentioned as well. Every conversation that I've had at Datacloud USA has got an AI component. And what I would like for you to do is to kind of help me marry these edge data centers that are serving these hospital organizations as it relates to AI. Because as I understand it, and having talked to, a dozen folks here already, the miracles of AI are happening on the operating room floor. They are happening, in hospitals and things like that. And unless we have the capability of these edge data centers, kind of like in the backyard of these hospitals, then again, those miracles are the dream of AI, and the advancement of medicine doesn't happen unless they're there. Is that how you see it as well?
We do, and we see it mostly coming from research hospitals.
Yes.
So, for example, University of Alabama at Birmingham, which is where I live, they're one of our customers, and UAB does a lot of research in their healthcare system. And they do that in our facility. What that has meant is really upscoping the capabilities at the site. So historically, enterprises might need 6 kW, 8 kW at the cabinet. We have for these applications high performance compute capabilities where we've brought in more power to the cabinet, and that also necessitates bringing in cooling capabilities. So, we made an investment in a chilled water plant for the site to be able to provide that service to that type of application for the research hospitals and research departments at the university. So not just in the healthcare world.
Yeah. It sounds like you guys are kind of innovating in lockstep with your customers, which I find, I don't know how because technology is advancing as quickly as it is. I don't know how you don't do that. You have to innovate right alongside your customers.
Well, right alongside with our customers is exactly the way to say it, because this is not this is not a situation where we can build it and they will come.
Right.
Because if we did that, we would have built a legacy infrastructure that was no longer applicable.
Yeah.
And so now it is partnering with customers on the infrastructure design and then building that to the specs of what they need and what they're going to need for the coming years. So it's future proofed a little bit, but we're going to have to continue to evolve and innovate all along the way.
And it's another really, really interesting point, because if you do it too soon, it's obsolete by the time you've got folks, moving in. So innovating again in lockstep with your customers seems like the smartest way to go about doing things.
We have to do it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So, future of AI and digital infrastructure. Where do you see all this going?
I think that, whereas we were talking about our enterprise edge data centers needing, 6 or 8 kW, where we have some of the healthcare and other research components coming in, needing more density at the cabinet. We were getting into the mid 30s or even 40s on the kW. The design for AI, especially for the training modules that are happening at the core sites, those designs are now at 130 kW today of what we're putting in. How that also extends out to the edge, back where we came from, is that some of the inference models can be run there. Those are low latency applications that need to deliver to customers who are in those regions. And so it's not just megawatts at the hyperscale sites. It's also extending back to the edge where we're already present.
Yeah. Wow. David, we should do this again. I feel like a year from now, we'll be talking about a lot of this and some of your implementation and things like that. But thanks for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. Stay connected, stay happy and healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, the chapter that I've written is about painting the right picture around business cases, particularly around sustainability business cases. And the most important part is that we see regularly when we're talking to customers about how business cases are presented to the C-suite, and how a lot of them sometimes really don't get across and be approved. There's a very common case where no is one of the easiest answers that comes back from the senior management team. So the purpose of the chapter is to really break down what makes a really good business case, and hopefully enables the reader to understand how they can structure it to make sure that they do get the approval. Key points and key takeaways from those things are about knowing the future of your business and really forward scanning the market to really help the C-suites understand how their environment is changing and why the business case can really help the organization move forward. Second more important point is around really knowing your numbers. It's very easy to assume that sustainability business case is all about carbon reduction, but ultimately it's about making sure that you really know the numbers, because it really needs to make a financial benefit into the organization as well as an environmental benefit as well. And then one of the most important parts of delivering a sustainability business case is about making sure that you use the right language. Within the world of sustainability, we're very good at making sure that it all gets very complicated, and therefore only the ones that are involved in the markets really understand all the abbreviations, etc. And making sure that you want to really get your business case approved means that you really need to simplify the language and make sure it is absolutely crystal clear on what you're requesting, and the timelines that you're looking for the paybacks to be presented to the business as well. So those are the three key takeaways from the chapter.
Yeah, sure. So in a world where data centers, data in particular, and digital infrastructure is becoming part and parcel of our daily lives, it's critical that we start to look at how we harness the power of technology and greener data to combat the environmental topics that we have today. So the focus of the chapter is really around how we look into the new technologies coming into this space, how we accelerate the application of AI platforms to make sure that we reduce energy usage, emissions and waste through using new technologies like liquid cooling. Perhaps, Rob, if I hand over to you now, you could take us through the detail of the chapters and the different topics we touch on.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, so our chapter focuses on some key areas, and they include the adoption of renewable energy and energy storage and its role there. We talk about smart grids and microgrids of the data center. And then as we talked about the digitization of energy and then the role that data will play in improving our sustainability. And that data needs to be reflected in metrics and frameworks. And this is something that we've at Schneider have talked about for a number of years, of creating a standard framework to be able to measure and make continuous improvements. And the conversation would not be complete unless we talked about AI's impact in the data center, and then key technologies it's pulling along, like liquid cooling, and its effect on sustainability.
Yeah, so our chapter is about how data centers can actually be used to solve potentially UN SDG 6, people not having access to water, and UN SDG 7, people not having access to electricity, by thinking outside of the box and placing them, as I mentioned in the introduction, in emerging market rural areas, these micro data centers that are powered by solar. So really the chapter just kind of goes into how we sort of came to the idea, then also some of the trials and tribulations of being an early stage startup relying on a brand new technology like Starlink, and what are some of the early
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, trends, and innovations from thought leaders in the digital infrastructure environment. And we are actually coming to you live from Datacloud USA in the Lone Star State of Austin, Texas. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Trenton Thornock. Trenton, how about if I get your name right? Trenton is the CEO of Prometheus Hyperscale. Trenton, welcome to JSA TV.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
So Trenton, big news coming from you. But before we get into that big news, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about Prometheus?
So Prometheus is the expansion of what began as Wyoming Hyperscale. So Wyoming Hyperscale is still the project entity in Wyoming. What Prometheus is doing is we're expanding the Wyoming campus, first of all, from 120 megawatts, where it was originally planned, to a gigawatt.
Is that all?
That's all. We have a distributed generation developer partner in Wyoming who has $8 billion in closed capital. And so they're responsible for the power generation. We're responsible for expanding the data centers.
Trenton, and no offense to anyone that I have interviewed over the last 2 days, but this was the one interview that I couldn't wait to have. And it is because of that data center in Wyoming and some of the truly innovative, we throw that word around too much in our industry, but it couldn't apply any more than what you are doing in Wyoming. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about that data center campus and from its origins and ultimately where things are going?
Right. So the origins were in trying to figure out how to do 100% liquid hyperscale.
Mm-hmm.
And originally the idea was to take water usage to zero and to figure out how to massively slash energy consumption. And really the only way to do that is through liquid. Frankly, nobody in the industry seemed to give a damn about sustainability 4 years ago when I started. Some still don't. But the main reason why we went down this path was to reduce cost. Mm-hmm. So in my mind, if I could build a better business that was more sustainable economically and save the environment at the same time, that was an ideal answer. And that's really where we got to. So since 2021, when we finished our basis of design and our engineering, based on the current chips that are out there for AI and becoming available in November, like NVIDIA's Blackwell, and the chips that are coming over the next 18 months,
right,
we have made zero changes to our design. So the whole concept with Prometheus is supersizing Wyoming, number one, and number two, we've announced other locations that we've been working on for several years. Mm-hmm. In Colorado and Arizona. And so the Wyoming data center becomes the template that we intend to replicate around the Western U.S. initially, and then we'll go further afield later down the line.
So many things to unpack here, but the one thing, to your point, 4 or 5 years ago, nobody was talking about it, and those who were, it was largely lip service. And no offense to anybody, at this show or anybody doing, the pressure was there. They were seeing it. They had a response to the sustainability question, but what was really kind of happening under the hood wasn't particularly sustainable yet. But now here we are 4 or 5 years later, and we have folks like Prometheus who truly feel like, or from my seat anyway, truly feels like this, from original design, construction, through implementation, with no changes to that overall design, you're mapping or creating a blueprint for how this is supposed to work everywhere.
Right. Everyone's trying to figure it out, and we're already there. And we've been there for some time. So, if we talk about sustainability, still I think a lot of people don't care, frankly. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Because what happened was we went down this path that caused us to architect a data center that could handle different types of liquid development. So we can do rear door heat exchange racks. We're going to get a little technical. Mm-hmm. We can do single phase immersion. We can do two-phase direct chip. We can do other direct chip high density applications. So that part's already solved. What happened was we went from a fringe designer, engineer, to right in the middle of the fairway when density started to increase, right? So we know what the density is now. What we need to be doing is building for the density that's going to be in the market 18 months from now.
Yeah.
Not right now.
Yeah.
18 months to 2 years from now. So unless that has been part of your design for a couple of years, no matter how much money you throw at it, right now, resources are scarce. The engineers who have the expertise to do this are scarce. We know that some of our project team members have dispersed and are working on a whole bunch of different projects.
Right.
But now the brain trust is diluted, right? So it's going to be really hard to recreate what we've already got going.
What I find fascinating about what you just said is that you built the data center of the future to meet the demands of the next future, and by next future, 18 months is like 18 years or 18 minutes, really, in this industry right now. And that's one of the reasons why I couldn't wait to discuss this with you. So, but let's talk about some of the challenges that you feel like that the industry generally will face over the next 18 months, and more specifically, Prometheus, as you have truly implemented and have on the ground this kind of very future forward data center design.
Well, fortunately, we have a very long time preference in terms of our investment horizon. We don't have any bank debt, so I don't have any bankers calling me saying, "Hey, when are you guys going to go vertical?
Yeah.
Who's your tenant?"
Yeah.
We can hang around the hoop as long as we need to, and go whenever somebody is ready to drop the hammer, so to speak. So there's that aspect. I've invested a lot of my own personal capital.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people that'll be on panels and speaking today who are experts, but they don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
I have skin in the game, and that's part of the reason why I haven't gone anywhere. So we joked a little bit about being the baby crocodile in the data center industry. Maybe we're more like the cockroach that just won't die. After the asteroid comes and kills all the dinosaurs.
Yeah,
we're still out there crawling all over.
There's some really interesting sustainability analogies in being the last cockroach on Earth. But we'll get into that on our next conversation. Trenton, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
You bet. You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. Stay happy, stay connected, and healthy, and we'll see you soon.
The chapter, deals into the realm of the green data centers, addressing the imperative of balancing technologies as mentioned with environmental responsibility. It emphasizes the necessity of transitional towards the sustainable practices to mitigate the environmental impact of data centers. That we have talked about few strategies, including optimizing the energy efficient infrastructure, harnessing renewable energy sources, overcoming the challenges such as high initial cost and legacy infrastructure. There, we have also incorporated few case studies where we highlight how successful implementation eventually help the organization to bring all those sustainability initiatives within the business and demonstrate the successful benefits, including cost reduction as well as decreased carbon emissions.
Yeah. So the key takeaways for the chapter, I was so excited to be able to participate in this project. I mean, first and foremost, sustainability is one of the core values that we have here at DartPoint. So this is not only important to us from a as we evolve as a data center operator, but it's truly important to us as a company that we contribute as we think about the impacts that our business has on the environment and how we can always look to improve that and be more competitive. But the title of my chapter is really the interconnect domain between finance, sustainability, and innovation. And I was so excited to get that as our title because it really covers the entire ecosystem end to end as it relates to the data center sector and the impacts that the data center sector is having on the environment. And really, the four key takeaways that I would identify in our chapter are really first and foremost is growth that the sector is experiencing. When you think about data demand and you think about where data centers sit in the ecosystem, right? We're at the core of what drives that data demand, not only today, but these enormous future projections, right? The ecosystems that we create in our facilities are really the drivers that enable all that. So that's one, right? How sustainable is that going forward, and what are the impacts on the environment, given just the enormous power demand that our ecosystems create and particularly when you think about the tailwinds of AI and machine learning type opportunities, that demand only exponentially grows. The second point, really, in our chapter, is really about capital. Right, we're a business that requires an enormous amount of capital to continue to grow. We are a capital-intensive business, and the chapter that we were able to participate in really addresses the impact of capital coming into the industry, the impact of sustainability, and particularly around the new entrants of capital coming into the market and how they want to focus capital being deployed in a very sustainable way. And so we really address that, and I'm excited about the impacts that's having on the industry. The third one is innovation, right? That's what Dark Points is all about. We consider ourselves really to be thought leaders in the industry, right? We want to be perceived as innovators. When you think about sustainability, and I mentioned the power demand in the industry, generally people tend to just kind of think about alternative power sources, whether that's wind or whether it's other types of power solutions that are being talked about. But when you really understand what's going on within the data center ecosystem, that's just one component, right? Design, processes, tools, procedures, technology, right? How you become very efficient through advanced technology and innovation. All of that end-to-end ecosystem really comes into play when you begin to think about sustainability within the data center sector, and how do you really maximize the benefit that we can have on the environment. And then, of course, the last one of the key learning is the customer, right? That is clearly an environment where if you want to be relevant as a data center provider, not only today, but in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you have to evolve your thinking, the way we build our platforms, the way we deploy our platforms, all has to have a mindset of sustainability, because customers today, whether you're engaging in a prospective discussion as they look at you as a potential partner, or they're a customer in your existing environment, they're demanding solutions that are environmentally friendly. And if you want to continue to do business with them, you've got to be able to deliver and demonstrate that that's a direction you're developing and evolving your company. So those are really the four key takeaways and the four areas that we focus on within our chapter within the book.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, trends, and innovations from the world of the digital infrastructure space. And we're talking to thought leaders for the last 2 days at the Datacloud USA event in the Lone Star State of Austin, Texas. And speaking of thought leaders, I got one here right next to me. To my right, we have Mr. Mike Crizet. Mike is the CEO of Radius DC. Mike, welcome to JSA TV.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So I've got a bunch of questions here. Probably won't ask any of them. I've got a lot to talk to you about. But really quickly, edge demand in secondary markets. Why don't you talk to our viewers a little bit about what those secondary, why we're in those secondary markets, and what it means to the businesses and organizations who operate in those markets.
Sure. Yeah. So Radius DC owns, operates, and develops what I call scaled edge data centers, not your traditional carrier hotels, but ones that have a connectivity density within these secondary markets in which folks are looking to deploy applications that need to be next to those population centers and adjacent to that network.
And we talked about a lot right before the camera started rolling, and I'd like to continue that conversation. So when we're talking about these edge data centers, and we're talking about the people and the institutions that they serve, and how ultimately having that edge data center in those markets are how those communities ultimately kind of get lifted up and stay relevant, some of those businesses, as we kind of move into the next decade, and with the technological shifts and advances like that. How do you see what you're doing as it relates to helping advance those communities?
Sure. So, the applications that are out there today that are developed are needing to be disseminated into multiple markets. Typically, historically, that's been done through more of a hub and spoke model through the hyperscalers, in which they have a fair amount of density in what we'll call the tier 1 data center markets. More and more, we're seeing that disseminate into these secondary markets for both performance and data collection needs for these applications that need to be near the people that they're collecting data from or serving, as well as the network to go collect that. So that's where we're seeing the big growth. And with the advent of artificial intelligence and what's been going on in that, we just see that trend continuing over time to where the applications that will be developed out of those modeling exercises will continue to need to be developed and disseminated into these secondary markets.
So you put your foot right in the door of the AI discussion, so I'm going to kick it wide open. So where does Radius DC fall in the AI discussion? I mean, I know that you were a technology enabler for the folks who are in your facilities, but when we're talking about AI and kind of what things look like 10, 20 years from now, where do you see these edge data center deployments kind of fitting in into that niche?
So I'll say a couple of things. One thing that we're doing at Radius is thinking about what the next generation of application will need from a power density, from a floor loading density, from a proximity to the network. The current generation of applications tend to be lower density and tend to be more network centric. We're seeing that tick up. So first thing that we see over the next 20 years is as these AI platforms start disseminating through and inferencing their applications out to local data sets and local users, is you're going to have the next class of data center that will help satisfy those demands. So again, higher density from both the power and weight perspective, but more importantly, they're going to need to have larger scale. Historically, you would see scaled network edge deployments, in less than a megawatt. Now we're seeing that increase to 1 to 5 megawatts, and we think that trend will continue. So size will continue to matter, but it won't be the large scale, hundreds of megawatts demand for these types of centers. These will just be a little bit smaller.
And so to those lower density customers out there right now, the message from you is we haven't forgotten about you. We're still here, and you're still here, and we're going to continue to serve you.
The applications that they're running are very relevant. Right? And the platforms in which they're running on have multiple years of useful life. Everyone's going to go through hardware refresh cycles, and particularly as they get higher density from a compute perspective, you're still going to see those workloads increase. But these are largely CPU-based workloads, today, and will continue to be for a number of years. The GPU-based workloads, which drive those higher densities, both from a weight and energy consumption, are coming, but we want to be able to accommodate for those in the future while absolutely maintaining a stable base of customers who will need that CPU-based workload for years to come.
Excellent, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. Stay connected and happy networking.
Hi, I'm Rob Bunger with Schneider Electric, and I'm the innovation product owner within the CTO office, which looks after our data center segment.
And hello everyone, my name is Mark Garner. I'm the Senior Vice President for our Secure Power division here in Europe and France. Yeah, sure. So in a world where data centers, data in particular, and digital infrastructure is becoming part and parcel of our daily lives, it's critical that we start to look at how we harness the power of technology and greener data to combat the environmental topics that we have today. So the focus of the chapter is really around how we look into the new technologies coming into this space, how we accelerate the application of AI platforms to make sure that we reduce energy usage, emissions and waste through using new technologies like liquid cooling. Perhaps, Rob, if I hand over to you now, you could take us through the detail of the chapters and the different topics we touch on.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, so our chapter focuses on some key areas, and they include the adoption of renewable energy and energy storage and its role there. We talk about smart grids and microgrids of the data center. And then as we talked about the digitization of energy and then the role that data will play in improving our sustainability. And that data needs to be reflected in metrics and frameworks. And this is something that we've at Schneider have talked about for a number of years, of creating a standard framework to be able to measure and make continuous improvements. And the conversation would not be complete unless we talked about AI's impact in the data center, and then key technologies it's pulling along, like liquid cooling, and its effect on sustainability.
Yeah, a number of different aspects really. First and foremost, Schneider Electric is a global leader in digital transformation and energy management. We are truly focused around the sustainability agenda and have been so for many years now. So it felt really important with such an important book like Greener Data to ensure that Schneider Electric was involved in the book and contributing to it. The other aspect though is, to my first point, data is a part of our daily lives, whether it's what we do at work, what we do at home, what our children are doing. Data is around us everywhere now, and it's only going to become more and more commonplace. So greener data and developing a greener data infrastructure is going to be critical to the future of our communities and our lives. Increasing awareness around the data center industry and the greening of data center is something that's very close to my heart. Having been in the industry now for 5 or 6 years, it's very important to me that we bring it to more people and make more people aware of what the data center industry contributes to our daily lives.
Yeah, and I'll add that we are glad to be recognized leader for sustainable development. But I think recent years have been a stark reminder that there's a lot more work to be done. And with the Greener Data, bringing together industry leaders to discuss how digital infrastructure organizations are combating climate change, it really is a natural fit for our organization, and we're proud to contribute. with only 10 years to achieve the Paris Agreement and limit temperature rise to 1.5, all organizations need to accelerate their sustainability. So if we're able to push that along a little bit faster, it's something we firmly believe in here at Schneider Electric.
Yeah, so AI is obviously the topic on everyone's mind at the moment, but AI will change the way data centers are designed, built, and operated in the foreseeable future. It's going to put more onus on sustainability demands in data centers. The estimation we have here at Schneider Electric is that AI workloads is going to represent somewhere between 15 to 20% of total data center energy by 2028. That's a significant amount, so we need to design our AI data centers with sustainability in mind, making sure that it's there and ready to support our future.
Yeah, I fully agree, Mark. And AI is forcing us to really rethink how we design data centers. We've already seen, new ways to do things, and although we say it's 15 to 20%, these new ways to do it are highly sustainable and will proliferate across all types of data centers. So we do see it currently as a challenge on how do we tackle these high densities and liquid cooling, but ultimately a real opportunity to make the whole industry efficient and sustainable.
Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, trends, and innovations from thought leaders in the digital infrastructure space. And we are coming at you live. That's right, Travis. We are live streaming right now from Datacloud USA in the Lone Star State of Austin, Texas. And speaking of thought leaders, I got one of those guys right next to me right now. Travis Talcott is the technical sales lead for the Americas at Ecosense. Travis, welcome to JSA TV.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Really excited to be here.
Travis, you and I have had a half dozen discussions already over the last 48 hours. We're going to continue that discussion right now. But before we do, huge congratulations to Ecosense on Datacloud's Sustainable Data Center Project of the Year. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's exciting for sure.
Yeah, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what the project and what's going on at Ecosense?
Yeah, absolutely. So that project itself was very exciting. We were able to help the customer save a large percentage of their cooling energy, reduce their carbon emissions. So we were really able to do that just based off of our approach. So we are able to collect really granular levels of data, and then we apply advanced analytics against those. And we have a tool called our Cooling Advisor, which is an AI-driven tool that allows the operators to continuously optimize their environment. Since, as we know, data centers are changing, they're always dynamic.
Yeah.
They're never stagnant. So with that in mind, we're able to continuously optimize, which allows our customers to continuously reduce the amount of cooling that they need. So even as power demands increase, the IT load increases within their facilities, we're able to keep them at a lower threshold and kind of dialed in so that they're always as efficient as possible.
Travis, you mentioned something just now and earlier, maybe yesterday afternoon, about data. And if you don't have the data, you can't make decisions about the data. So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what the Ecosense approach to understanding what the data is and how you're making educated decisions about that data?
Yeah, no, that's great. So you can't manage what you don't measure.
Yeah.
So really what we believe in is collecting granular levels of data, not only from the power systems and more of the traditional things that people will think about when collecting data in a facility, but also from, rack level thermals. What that allows us to do then is it allows us to do more advanced analytics. It allows us to get a really clear picture of what's going on inside a facility because as you know, you can't see temperature.
Yeah.
So when you're walking around a data center environment, you're largely blind to what's really going on.
Yeah.
So what we're able to do then is we're able to light all those things up, turn everything on so you can see exactly what's going on at a very granular level, down to the rack level. That allows us then to, utilize the power of machine learning to go ahead and crunch the numbers for us and give us recommendations on how we can improve. So that's really important to us, especially as we start increasing densities, as the industry starts expanding and growing. We're going to see more and more racks that are 30, 40, 50 kilowatts as a standard. And so what that's going to make us do is really have a better idea of exactly how we're handling that inside of the white space. So that's where we really come into play, because we're able to help operators really see that and gain complete operational visibility through our tool.
Listening to you talk, the first thing I'm thinking is, like, if I'm a potential Ecosense customer, I'm immediately hearing you say the things that I will need to prove on my ESG initiatives.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's key because, ESG is coming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies that are making some good ESG pledges, and it's really becoming important for our data center industry. So what we're able to do when we have the data is we're able to actually prove that we're doing what we say we're going to be doing.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. Okay, so I'm going completely off script now. Yeah, I knew you'd love that. So one of the things that got me initially engaged with speaking to you yesterday was that clearly you're one of the younger faces in the crowd, and that is no offense to anyone else in this crowd right now, but you're a younger guy. You're a younger guy, and you are in what has traditionally been kind of an older man's game. Let's just say that. And I would include myself in that too. But tell me, like, as a younger guy in this space, how important is it for you, Travis, to see other younger people kind of joining the digital infrastructure party?
Oh, it's massive, right? So we need a little bit more youth in the data center industry, I believe, because at the end of the day, it's really my generation and the next generations that are going to have to deal with, the advances in artificial intelligence and what that's really going to cause as far as power requirement standpoint, land standpoint, environmental standpoint.
Yeah.
And so when we're bringing more youth into the data center, we're getting a fresher perspective on the generation that's going to have to deal with it. That being said as well, I think more youth in the data center brings a big ability to innovate a little bit more.
Yeah.
Having some fresh thinkers, some fresh thought leaders.
Dreamers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm very passionate about. As you said, I'm one of the younger people in this crowd.
Yeah.
But, I really enjoy it. The data center industry itself is always growing. It's such a great industry to be in. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the future.
You are a fantastic ambassador for Ecosense and for others your age who might be considering the digital infrastructure industry. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that, Dave.
You bet. And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. Stay connected, and we'll see you soon.